Hi everyone, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kim and I'm the Content Marketing Specialist for Veterinary in Global Technology Solutions. This is our podcast, Pause, Rewind and Play. Today we are thrilled to have Rory the Vet join us. As our inaugural launch episode, it's a strong start to the season. And even though summer is coming to an end, there's a light to the end of this COVID tunnel. Rory is a top vet influencer and has many credentials and achievements to his name. So what is it that makes him successful as a veterinary professional and personally in his life? We all know how stressful it can be for vet surgeons, GPs, and those on the front line, now more than ever. Stay tuned to find out more about mental health, sustainability, useful technology and tools, and the top skills that you need to excel in your career. At the end of our episode, you can find the resources section, all of the things that we mention, and use that to make a difference in your day-to-day life. Enjoy. Hi Rory, and welcome to the Veterinary podcast. This is on our software services side. It is a pleasure and honor to have a person like you on this episode, especially as our launch episode, and this is our first one. So as an introduction to yourself, you graduated from the Royal Veterinary College in 2015. You're an ambassador for RSPCA, Street Vets, the British Dyslexic Association. And to add to that, you've got your own book, The Secret Life of a Vet. What more can you have? Tell me and share with me, what is it that I've missed that gives our listeners a sense of who you are? And can you describe yourself in 3 to 5 words, please?
Whoa, 2 challenges straight off the bat. That's a very nice intro. I did graduate in 2015. I've been a vet for, just under 6 years. And it's been a bit crazy. So I think me in a nutshell, workaholic is absolutely the word that my girlfriend would throw at me. And I think starting to learn how to balance that a little bit. I'm sure we will touch on that later. The other, I think for me, learning outside of veterinary is a big thing. So I'm a massive foodie. So foodie would be word number 2. If I wasn't a vet, I would absolutely, I'd love to be a food critic anyway, to be honest. But I also think I would probably want to be a chef as well. And then I think probably Cotswold boy, if you can pull that into one. So or country bumpkin, because as much as I've been in London for over 10 years now, my heart very much lies in the countryside. So they're probably the words to encompass me.
Yeah, it's fascinating because we know that vets are passionate about what they do, but I think even in one of your recent Instagram posts, you highlighted the importance of getting to know people outside of their profession and not forgetting the core of who you are, the truth of who you are. So that really needs to come through, and just so that, people can relate, you become a relatable person. And it's just, now more than ever, we need to feel even more connected and support each other. Fantastic. It's really good to get that intro. What we would love to talk about is hard to ignore. We've been through a roller coaster of a ride in the past 18 months with the COVID pandemic. It has been insanely challenging. There's been a lot of mental health issues, and particularly in your profession and industry, you're under a lot of pressure, especially because we've had things like the puppy pandemic, and now recently we've had the pandemic. We've had to deal with the Delta variant. That does mean that with little resource, you guys are in huge demand. How do you feel about that? And we talk about lots of challenges, but what do you feel like is the biggest challenge for guys like you?
I think talking as a first opinion vet on the front line, I think for me it has been understanding how to work as a group, how to work as a team, because right from day dot it was okay, you've got a social distance at work. But anyone that spent any time in a vet clinic, particularly a GP clinic, knows that that's just not possible. I mean, we were getting direction from the BVA and the RCVS and the bosses of corporate practices saying, yes, well, you must try and be 1+ meters or 2 meters away from each other at all times, wearing masks and visors and gloves and PPE and gowns. And put a stressed cat or a stressed dog into that situation where you've got a visor and a mask and it's just not doable. And then you're trying to take bloods from a dog and you've got a nurse holding, maybe they're a bit wriggly, maybe you've got 2 nurses holding and a vet trying to take the bloods. You cannot social distance.
Yeah.
And I think then the knock-on effects of that, unfortunately, are when you've got a team stretched as much as vet practices have been stretched over the last 18 months, you need that human interaction and you need that social interaction. I think that's one of the benefits of being a vet through this, is we've been able to go into work and we've been able to see people, but it's been a really inhuman or non-human interaction. You can't go into work and hug your mates. You can't have a meeting where you're all sat around having a coffee. You've all got to be in masks and distancing away from each other. And it just it didn't feel like the profession I think we all love. And that was, for me, the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it must have been quite sobering and just really hard to know when you're being compliant, but also when you cross the line, because it goes against what is innately human, which is to be connected, physical touch, communication, intimacy, all of those things. And that's both personally and professionally. So I can only imagine that's even without the pressure of being a veterinary surgeon or a veterinary GP. It's like you are literally in life or death situations on a daily basis. So it's mind blowing to me how stressful it can be for you guys.
And it's interesting you say that, because imagine that we're having a break. Imagine me and you are sat in a clinic and we're vet and a nurse and an emergency runs through the front door. What if we've got PPE on? We've got a bleeding dog. How do you balance that situation? Are you going to take that minute that might actually be life and death for the dog while putting your gloves and your gown and your mask and your visor on?
Exactly, yes.
Or are you going to go and help the dog? And of course, every single vet and every single nurse helps the dog first. But then
you have to make that judgment call, right? Every single day.
Absolutely. And that's been really, really difficult.
Interesting. So with that leads nicely into my next question, which is, so we think about this post-COVID world, post-COVID future. We've spoken slightly about the way you operate the vet clinic. What do you think has been the biggest thing that has changed? Because we know that as humans, we've had to adjust really quickly. So we've had office workers who have had to work from home, and we're all Zoomed out, we're all webinared out, we're doing everything virtually. In the healthcare industry and in frontline, a lot of that is telemedicine. What are your thoughts on that? And have you observed and worked with different behaviors that you guys have had to adjust to?
I think there's behaviours from both sides of the coin. I think there's behaviours from clients and there's behaviours from vets. On the surface, there's obviously things that have changed. So there's a lot of clinics out there that aren't letting people in the building, even now, and doing sort of roadside veterinary, which I feel should stay in the past. I think that was a managing strategy for the time. I don't think any of us want to do that continually. So me, particularly in our clinic, it's one person per pet, which always brings issues with it when you're dealing with things like euthanasias or really serious conversations. I mean, even as little as going through x-rays with an owner, quite often you'll do that virtually now or do that over the phone so that you can have a conference call with the family rather than just doing it to one person. We've also got screens up in rooms. We've got screens up between computers for vets, trying to be as compliant as possible. And then from the client point of view, I think the way that we are acting as vets has changed, because so much of what we're doing now is advice and anxiety relief and giving people peace of mind. I don't think I've ever, in my short term as a vet, but still sort of 6 years, I don't think I've ever had to call as many of my clients as I am right now. I'm coming into dozens of people that just want advice, just want a helping hand, want want peace of mind. And that is absolutely where I feel that your comment on telehealth is possible and the way forward. Because in this increased anxiety society we're living in right now, people do want reassurance. They want a easy and quick and effective way of going, oh, my dog's got a limp. Do I need an emergency appointment? Well, probably not. You're probably fine. Just maybe see how we are tomorrow. Yes. But people worry about these things. I mean, I had someone this week call me and say, hey, the dog's got an area of hair loss. I think I needed an urgent appointment. Can you book me in today? And I was like, whoa, hair loss where? How? It was 0.5 centimetre on the crest of its head. Wasn't it? She wasn't sore. But this person had got herself so worked up that she needed an emergency appointment. And it's going, wow, okay, just step back. And I think that's what vets need to do. And that's how we need to act, and use telemedicine in that instance to our advantage.
In that respect, yeah. So it's not just that you're treating animals, but a lot of your time is, as you said, giving advice. And do you think that telemedicine and virtual appointments are the way forward, because that's actually an opportunity to reduce inefficiencies?
Yeah, I think it is. And I absolutely do think it's a more efficient use of time. However, I think as an industry, when we're going forward with telemedicine and going forward with telemedicine appointments, we've got to be better at screening the ones that cannot be done over telemedicine. And we have to hold our hands up and be aware that if a dog has got a sore eye, there is absolutely nothing you can do over a video. Literally nothing. You need to put fluorescein in that eye. You need to see it, and it needs to be seen that day. So honestly, when we were right at the start of the pandemic, it was driving me mad, the amount of things that I was seeing over video going, oh, it's got a really sore ear. Hey, cool, I've probably got to scope that. Or it's got a sore eye. Oh, I've got to put fluorescein in that. And I'm just almost calling these people, seeing I had these appointments booked in for 3 or 4 hours later, calling them that morning going, no, just come straight down, because there's no point in me seeing you over video. I'm not going to be able to do anything effective.
And for those patients that you do need to see in person, because of the pandemic, has that added like a huge backlog to seeing pet parents and their patients? And has it added even more time pressure? Like how is the vet industry dealing with that, with this backlog?
I'm not sure we are. I'm not sure we are dealing with it. I think everyone's at breaking point, honestly. And I mean, I've got friends who are leaving their jobs. It's a really dire time in the veterinary profession right now. And we've really got to look out for each other. And I think there is a huge increase in demand for veterinary because of the massive influx of pets last year. There is a backlog of cases of routine stuff that we're trying to fit in around our emergencies and urgent cases. Yeah. And then there's the neuterings, and there's neuterings and vaccines that we've just almost ignored for the last 12 months. And now there's people going, well, okay, I need to get my pet vaccinated, but that's going to be 2 appointments because they're going to need to restart the vaccinations. And that takes up 2 vet appointments or 2 vet nurse appointments, which otherwise need to see other patients. So there's a huge drain on time at the moment. And I'm struggling to see an end to it as well, which is difficult right now.
Yeah, so let's dig into that a little bit deeper, because that was one of my questions for the end of the interview. Actually, I wanted to sort of conclude on a note where we can really help people. But since we're talking about it right now, mental health, as you say, a huge deal, not like across the board. All humans, all individuals have been suffering massively for whatever reason. The pandemic has just exacerbated it, but it has been sobering to hear that the vet industry has one of the highest suicide rates. And I think I heard or I read somewhere something like they're 4 times more likely to commit suicide, which is awful. It's really sad. And I wonder, what is it you do personally as coping techniques to help yourself with your mental health, and as such an advocate of it, and you have such a high profile, you've got over 40,000 followers. How do you feel like you can help others in that respect?
I think talking, honestly. I mean, you very rightly point out that, vets have the highest suicide rate of any profession in the modern era. We have huge, I mean, I'm probably telling vets this, which is completely unnecessary because everyone knows this, but we have huge levels of compassion fatigue, we have huge levels of depression, massive suicide rate, unfortunately. And I think I'm probably speaking for a lot of vets when I say most vets know someone, unfortunately, who has taken their life, which is a horrible statistic. And it needs to be talked about more. And it really is being talked about more. You hear about it from vets. Vets talk about it with themselves. And I think talking is absolutely step one in addressing this situation. As a coping mechanism, I think each person has to identify what their own coping mechanism is. It could be going home and baking a cake. It could be going home and taking the dog for a walk. It could be in the pub with mates. Whatever it is, you've got to identify it and use that to your advantage. And I think the big thing that we are guilty of as vets, particularly when we're so stretched and so under the cosh as we are right now, is actually addressing what we've seen on a day-to-day basis or dealt with on a day-to-day basis, registering those emotions and addressing them. And I think that's something I really didn't do and really struggled with for my first few years in practice. So much to the point where I basically almost put a chair through a window. I was so stressed.
Yes.
And it took that for me to realize that I was in the wrong job and I didn't have the support network, or I wasn't using my support network appropriately. And I wasn't looking after myself. And I think that, for me, was a big realization. And since then, I've been much more focused on what's right for me, taking time for me, because we also very much as vets want to throw ourselves into, I'm there to help the dog. Yes, of course, I'll work an extra few hours. Yes, of course, I'll pick up that consult for you. Oh, that's fine. I don't need lunch today. Like, we're all very similar. And I think sometimes it's okay to say no. If it's the right thing for you, it's okay to say no.
Learning to say no, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's so important, I think, because you mentioned how we all have to be more aware to identify the patterns or the behavior that's making us so unhappy. And just, I'm personally encouraged with this generation how we actually have access to the tools and resources like Mind Health. We have supportive online and offline communities. We have the Samaritans. There's plenty of places that we can go to talk to someone, even if it's not your own family and friends. We can have someone who's neutral, third party, outside of what you know and who you know, so that it is definitely just unbiased and with no judgment whatsoever.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that comes with vets is and it sounds really niche and arrogant to say it, but vets understand vets, and that's really important. And so speaking to your colleagues, and also we should do a very big shout out to Vet Life, who are incredible, and they're run by vets and there to listen at any time. They're like the Vet Samaritans, and they're just amazing.
That's a great shout out. And it means that, like, when you take these steps and you take accountability, and then it's easier for you to be your best self with your clients and your patients. You've given more time to yourself, and therefore you can pour more from your cup, so to speak.
I was literally just about to say that. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Well, we're sinking. That's good. And so when we talk about that, giving to your clients, we know that the majority of pet parents are millennials. So probably around our age group or in between our age group. And a lot of them are Gen Z as well. How does that change the way people consume things at the vet practice?
I think it's great, honestly, and absolutely over the last 10 years, I think the pet parent generation has changed. It's very much people like you and me who get their pet and often get their pet in place of a child or before a child is a dry run, and
it is their child.
Absolutely, they are their children, and that changes attitudes. It absolutely does, and I think probably increases anxiety amongst pet parents. It increases their research and their knowledge, which is a great thing. They often do lots of research about their pets and want to know as much as they can about their pet's health. They're interested pet owners as well, which I think is key. And as vets, we should be educating them and giving them the right advice on those. And they're there to spend money. And I hate to monetize it, but they're there to provide as much, whether it be a new dog bed, whether it be the organic dog treats on the shelf, whether it be the poor butters and all that sort of rubbish that you don't need for dogs. But anyway, like whether it be that or whether it be their veterinary care, they're there to spend money and they will do anything for their pets, which as vets, we need to be aware of. We cannot criticize people for doing that because we want the best for their patients as well. And we've got to be there to support them. The downside that comes with it is they expect more. They expect you to invest in their pet. They expect you to care as much as they do. And we absolutely should. Sometimes we'll struggle to show that, but especially when we're under the cosh, but we should absolutely try and invest in every patient we can.
And do they expect more, not just in products, but in services too? So things, because they're so loyal to their pets. And for you guys, the patients, we spoke about it at the beginning of the interview, which is they'll call you up and they're insanely worried about something that's quite minor. So they're looking for advice. So when it comes to services like pet health plans and wellness plans, are you seeing like a surge in the uptake of those services? Are people willing to spend their money on that? Yeah,
absolutely. I think they are. And I think it's almost now getting to the point where people are going, okay, well, I'm getting a new pet, so I must get insurance. I must get a pet health plan and probably some sort of support telehealth service as well. And I think particularly coming through insurers as well, telehealth is becoming more of a thing. And I'm definitely seeing in clinic, at least, a lot more people consulting telehealth platforms before then coming into the vet, because people want that advice there and then. They know they might not get that from their vet clinic until at least the end of the day, or maybe even tomorrow. So they're consulting these telehealth plans ASAP, and that's a great thing. And I think we've got to learn as the industry. I think we've got to learn how it works together, because I think at the moment there's a little bit of a fight between telehealth and vet clinics, particularly if it's not provided by the vet clinic. I think for whatever reason, we're worried they're going to take our clients, or we're worried they're going to do something wrong, or they're just there to send them in. There's such a negative view about telehealth.
Yeah, we need to not view it as a negative, more of an integrated approach,
100%,
rather than competitors. It's like working together.
Exactly, and I think that comes from both sides. I think telehealth providers have to make people very aware they're not there to replace in-person veterinary. But I also think vets have to be a little bit more open-minded and accept it in as well.
Yeah. So with that, obviously we spoke about the expectations from the pet parents, the customers. They're willing to spend more money. They have the loyalty. Technology that supports that. What are your thoughts on what's trending? What has been most useful to you as personally and professionally at the clinic? What's helping you do your job?
Honestly, not much at the moment. I'm not sure technology is as far along as we need it to be honest. I think the veterinary industry are very guilty of not utilizing the technology out there. We are an inherently cautious bunch of people. New things scare us. I mean, you've got clinics out there that don't want to switch away from Jupiter, let alone sort of use something really brand new. So I think it's going to be a slow uptake. I really do, and it's got to see clinics that are marketing themselves as modern, up-to-date, high-tech, mostly probably the city centre clinics, but those sorts of clinics need to be the trailblazers. They need to be the ones that trial these new tech things and lead the way with them. And there's clinics out there doing sort of proper, completely integrated app-based flow of a veterinary care. So you can access your pet's medical notes on an app. Like, that is the future of veterinary, in my opinion. I think that's where we're going. I think that's where we've got to go. We're not there yet. And I think also pet parents have to adopt that nature as well. We're only just adopting that for ourselves, I think. So we are moving that way. At the moment, we're just trying to get our heads around telehealth, which, as we've already alluded to, is a loggerheads. But yeah, I think that's where we're going.
And can I ask, just digging into that a little bit, why is it that you think the veterinary industry is kind of like a laggard or reluctant to adopt technology? Is it just because there's so many pressures in looking after patients in the first place and seeing to them that you just don't have time to think about the commercial side or the business side of that practice? And you're like, my only focus, this is my passion, right? I want to look after pets. Is that the thinking behind everything?
I think we're just a very traditional industry. And I think, as a general rule, we are, and there are exceptions to this. So if I'm about to insult people, I apologize. Vets
You're not making a speaking statement, it's fine.
Vets are rubbish businessmen. They are. Vets are rubbish business people because we are so focused on animals. We're focused on healing them and treating them. We don't think about the economics. We don't think about how we can make things easier. It's always been that way. It works that way. So that's how we do it. And I think we're very slow on the uptake with new things. And I think we are worried with new bits of tech or new bits of the sort of things coming in that it might not look after the pet as well. And then we might be liable. So I start using a brand new piece of tech. I miss a diagnosis and suddenly a dog dies. That's on me. It's not on the tech, it's on me. I think we are worried about that as well, particularly with things like telehealth. I mean, I think the worry about speaking to someone over the phone, them saying, and you believing them that their pet has this symptom. I mean, how many vets actually trust what their owners say? Not that many. I'm sure we then back ourselves up with a physical exam. We back ourselves up with blood work. We back ourselves up with tests. If it's all telehealth or whatever, and I keep going back to telehealth, but if it's all something else that's virtual or something that we cannot back ourselves and be sure of, and we have to trust a piece of technology, or we have to trust someone else, that's difficult because it falls on us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it's just the sheer pressure that you have on being able to give answers and the customer looking for the answer, and you're the only one that can provide that. Because I'm, as a technology provider, we're obviously thinking about the possibilities and the advantages of things like we spoke about telehealth, appointment scheduling, client communication, pre-appointment, post-appointment follow-ups. How can that be seamless? How can that be smooth? How can we, revenue generators for the clinic? How can we take care of the commercial side of the business that gives vets the time back to do their actual jobs? It doesn't take away more of their time, but it just helps with the efficiencies of running a clinic. So it's exciting times because, like you say, I feel like there's a space and an opportunity for the industry to catch up with technology, and not just catch up, but take advantage of what's there to help them.
100%, and it's coming, and you're seeing these things come in, and I think we've got to learn to be more trusting. We've got to trial these things, and they will help. I mean, you're speaking to someone who is tech savvy and wants these things to happen. I mean,
and even in the consult room, if you're trying to build trustworthiness and a rapport with the pet parent, and you're trying to access clinical history or patient records, for example, even that kind of thing could potentially be easier. So again, lots of opportunities. But let's move on to another question, which is around veterinary skills and characteristics and qualities and traits. You've been in it now for 6 years, you say?
Yeah.
So I wonder, what do you feel like is the most useful for people to brush up on or people to develop when they're either starting out, they're a new graduate, or even for an experienced veterinary professional?
I think the longer I'm in this profession, the more I realize it's all about communication. It is every single thing we do as vets is about communication, whether it be with the clients, whether it be with the pet, whether it be with a colleague, whether it be with management, whether it be with a specialist. It is all communication based. And I think becoming an effective communicator is the biggest thing you can do, both as a new grad and as an experienced clinician, to improve yourself as a whole. Because if you can communicate well with a client, you might not be the best surgeon in the world, you might not be the best medic in the world, but if you can communicate effectively and explain a condition to an owner, they will think you are God. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, because I am not. I'm a good vet. Don't get me wrong. I genuinely do believe in my skills. But am I going to set the world alight clinically? No. I'm a very good bog standard GP, and I do my job well. But I really do believe my communication skills are above the rest, and that is what I rely on, and that is what I believe. Particularly going back to the millennial pet parents comment and the things we were discussing. Yes. They want that. They want that clinician to reach out and do a recheck email in 5 days and just say, hey, just want to check in, see how Fluffy's doing. Or they want you to speak them through their x-rays, show them the x-rays, talk to them about what you're seeing, talk to them about what you're not sure about, and then send them follow-up information on that, whether you produce your own fact sheets or whether you get them online, because there's so much good resource online, and all it takes is that little bit of extra, that little bit of going and searching out that fact sheet, attaching it to an email and sending it to them, and they think you have gone above and beyond and just for them. And I think that is the well, for me, that's what is.
Yeah. And, I love that answer, because it's more to do with your interpersonal skills as opposed to technical qualifications that you need to be an excellent veterinary surgeon or a GP. And it's something that people can easily work on. You can find resources, you learn on the job and off the job, and just over time you start to develop these things. So I think, that's an excellent answer. Thank you for that. And I think people will be reassured to hear that, like, oh, if that's the one thing that I can work on and the one thing that will truly make a difference in all my interactions with my client, with even with the patient, we've got to speak to our pets in a gentle manner, help them feel relaxed. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So next question is around sustainability. I've seen that you have spoken about it slightly in your Instagram posts, and you are quite a strong advocate as well. And we have recently been doing some work around the theme of sustainability. We did an interview with Rory the Vet, who is the director of Vet Sustain. She was a past president of the BVA. And soon on our website, we will be publishing a fantastic Q&A, which has around 8 questions, very digestible, and we'll be giving it away to all of our audience, our listeners, and our readers. And it's just fascinating insight, because it talks about key areas that the veterinary industry can make a difference, which is around practicing responsible resource use, practicing responsible medicine use, looking at stock wastage, things like that. What is your stance on sustainability in your industry?
So I think as a human being, we all have to be aware of it, and we are all becoming more aware of it. Even if we've been living under a rock for the last 10 years, I think even then we know about global warming and the concerns with sustainability, plastics, waste, land use, greenhouse gases, all the sort of. Now, as an industry, we're in a tricky position because we're an inherently wasteful industry. We use PPE like it's going out of fashion. We use plastic syringes and packaging. And sometimes I look at bins overflowing with packaging and I'm going, oh my God, how are we ever going to get to the point where we are a sustainable industry? And I think all we can do is make improvements. All we can do is make those small steps to move towards where we want to be. And where we want to be might be 25 years down the line. But if we can start to make the small steps, we will get there. We're starting from back foot, I feel, as an industry. But there are already companies making syringes with less plastic. There are already companies doing cardboard waste bins rather than plastic waste bins. There are already, as a clinic, we just cut our deliveries, so our wholesale deliveries, by over a half. So we were getting 5 deliveries a week. We're now 2 deliveries a week. So there's things you can do as a clinic to make those changes and actually make a big impact. And if every clinic did those things, it would be huge.
Yeah, collectively, that's what always makes the difference, because it's that cumulative effect and impact. And again, a huge shout out to Vet Sustain, and I am directing listeners and readers in that way, because they have plenty of information, plenty of resources, and they even have a greener practice checklist on their website, which I think every practice and every professional should look at, because it's kind of like a checklist, and they're things that are very easy to implement. And like you say, it's a good reminder for me, actually, because I've been calling out on your industry, but actually it's every industry, it's every single human being. It's our responsibility to look after Mother Earth and take care of the planet. We live on it, we only have one life, and that's our job to do so.
And I think the other thing is, just because we're at work doesn't mean we shouldn't try and do the same practices we're doing at home. I mean, at home, exactly. I try and collect water. I try and use as little as possible. I recycle. I reuse. I do loads of things. Yet at work, for some reason, it doesn't worry me as much, or it didn't worry me as much. And now we've got a green team at work, which is amazing. And I think every clinic, if you've got the staff to do it and you've got the people who are passionate about it, put a green team together and start to question it. Even things like, if you don't recycle at work, recycle, or try and repurpose containers for other things, and just think about the ways we can be better, and or cycle to work even. I don't know. Anyway, lots of things you can do.
Yeah, there's tons of things, and it's kind of like taking those small steps to reach the peak of the mountain. Like we don't always have to think about the bigger picture, because that can often be really daunting and really scary, but just micro steps, micro movements, and even that can make a huge difference. So far this has been a really insightful interview, and obviously we don't want to continue on too long. So just with last and our parting thoughts, as we head into, we're still living in the COVID world, but post-COVID and the future of veterinary practices, what are your top 3 takeaways?
So I think as a whole, we've touched on most of them. We have, yes. Yeah. I think for me, the 3 things that I think we need to remember as vets is number 1, remember who you are. And that is something that I preach to everyone who will listen. And you mentioned, I did a social post on it recently. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I think is huge in the mental health of the profession. Is we get so bogged down in being a vet and being about the animals. We forget who we are as a person. We forget we enjoy baking. We forget we enjoy going for that run. We forget we enjoy doing other things. And I think if you can just take 5 minutes for yourself every day, it will make you, it helps me anyway.
It's like those breathing exercises, even if it's 2 minutes, just calm the autonomic nervous system down. That's
Absolutely.
it.
I mean, yeah, even things like using Calm app and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
find what works for you. I think number 2, digest your emotions. I think, again, that's a huge thing in the veterinary industry. And I think sometimes we don't take that time to really think about what we've seen, what we've done. Sometimes in a day, we'll go from elated with a new puppy and doing things to absolutely devastated, borderline tears, or even crying over a patient, and then super stressful in surgery. And then you could be crying over another patient. And I think if we don't take our time, think about how we felt and actually digest those emotions, they eat us up from the inside. So that's number 2. And then number 3, I think, remember, we're all in it together. We are very, very lucky to be part of an amazing profession, whether it be people like you working in tech in a supporting veterinary role, whether it be vets themselves, whether it be vet nurses, vet receptionists, whether you be delivering the wholesale, you are part of the veterinary community. And that is a special place to be. It's full of amazing people, and we're there for the animals, and we are all very understanding and empathetic and looking out for each other. So you're not alone. We're all in it together, and we will get through the COVID era, I promise.
Yeah, and those are really just kind of heartwarming, empowering tips. A lot of the time it can seem like common sense, but sometimes human beings just need reminders. And I think, particularly for me, and probably for most people, it is the mental health aspect. Taking time for yourself, and it's not being selfish, because being in the industry alone, you are naturally selfless human beings. You're helping pets every single day, but you do need to take that time for yourself. So I think that is a strong message to end the interview with. But there is one last thing, which is a random fun fact, because as I was preparing for this interview, I listened to your set on Lorraine Kelly, and they were asking about the book, and the guy extracted a bit of information, which was around the cat blink, or the cat stares, or the slow blink. Can you tell me about that? Because I just want to finish it off on a light note. It makes people laugh, and even though the majority of our listeners will be vets or in the industry, but from a vet to a non-vet or the general public, I was thinking about my cat last night, and I was like, oh, so if they slow blink, that means they respect you.
Yeah, so cats are weird. We all know cats are weird. But yeah, this was an odd thing for them to really pick up on when we were talking about the book. But yeah, I do write about basically the slow blink that the cats do. It's a behavior that's understood by behaviorists and vets. And essentially, if a cat slow blinks at you, it means they trust you and they respect you, and you're supposed to blink back. And so for a long period of my career, whenever I look at a cat, I do a weird slow blink, and people think I'm really odd.
Well, I'm going to try it now forever, because my parents have a Bengal, so he's like F3, kind of half wild, and because cats are known to be quite narcissistic, sometimes assholes, right? So I'm like, okay, is my cat respecting me? And I'm going to use that same technique.
Good. Honestly, so you see what happens when they don't blink back. Don't blink back. It's not meant, I promise.
Yeah, no, it's a good piece of advice, but also just very lighthearted, and I think that's what we need in this world. So after hearing that, I'm definitely going to pick up a copy of your book, and as a reminder to our listeners, The Secret Life of a Vet. Is that correct?
The Secret Life of a Vet. And actually, if you don't want to buy a hardback, the paperback's out on the 2nd of September, so all good.
Very exciting. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, Rory, and just once again, we really appreciate your insights. I think it'll be very useful, and it's a strong start to our podcast for our launch episode. It's awesome. Thank you so much. And we look forward to speaking with you until next time. That's everything. Take care.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye. Well, that was a great interview, wasn't it? Thank you for listening all the way until the end. I won't take up even more of your time, so we truly appreciate your attention. If you're interested in finding out more about what we can do to help, please take a look on our website and others listed on this slide. And look out for upcoming episodes with experts, leaders, shakers and movers in this industry. Stay tuned and stay well.